How's it going, people? Jack here. So it's been quite a while since I did a little bit of a rant, and I kind of felt like doing one today, especially since it's been around 10 hours since Black Friday, and I got myself a few stuff out there in stores, like some bicycle gear here, because I like to go fast. Additionally, because I want to be a bit more good to the environment and stuff, and recycling, I got myself a hand on some second-hand stuff. Like this is supposed to be some camera equipment that I haven't opened yet, but hopefully I got the actual good content in there and then I haven't been scammed. Speaking of scams, of course, that I guess should be the arbitrary word of 2022, as we are quite simply experiencing a hell of a lot of them. Scams in gaming, music, and whatever industry, and of course, most importantly, financial ones, because cyber criminals will never rest. But on the more legal side of things has, of course, since the beginning of the pandemic been the uptake in the use of cryptocurrency and subsequently, of course, NFTs. We had the crypto island scam, the Lazy Monkey scam, and of course now the very recent hard blow that was dealt to the entire non-fungible token thing was of course with FTX, a company headed by the most generous billionaire out there, Sam Bankman-Fried.
The guy you see next to me is the most generous billionaire in the world, and I found him.
Hi, my name is Sam.
His girlfriend, who could seemingly do trading with her eyes closed.
Off without my math degree. Use very little math. Use a lot of like elementary school math. Being comfortable with risk is very important. We tend not to have things like stop losses. I think those aren't necessarily a great risk management tool.
And their entire posse located in the Bahamas, who seemingly were having orgies? Well, the word orgy is not explicitly said, but they were having relation. Take location and relation together, do the math. But Sam Bankman-Fried, which, by the way, I mean, I know that is his real name, but really, Bankman? But Bankman-Fried did charm his way to the hearts of a lot of investors by seemingly in some meeting playing League of Legends, and he was so goddamn cool in their eyes that they decided to just throw a lot of money his way, with big names like BlackRock, SoftBank, and a hell of a lot of others that you may most certainly have never heard of investing in his vision.
That's fucking stupid.
The result, of course, being him and his friend forming a hedge fund and exchange worth $37 billion, which they sank so goddamn fast, bringing hundreds of affiliate companies with them down. And that was seemingly done by another crypto guy who was just kind of trolling. But of course, today's video is not about those guys. No, tonight I'd rather talk about what happens when you get closer to home. Home being YouTube, and when you start dealing with the content creators and their sponsorship content. It is so that once content creators get a certain numbers of viewers and subscribers to the channel, they start attracting the attention of brands for advertising purposes. Like for example, how a bunch of your favorite YouTubers would have been blasting you with some advertisement. Like in the gaming side of things, we have Raid Shadow Legend. For the Asmongold types, you have some keeps. For those who actually want to take care of what's inside the head and not just above, you have the absolutely and never ever controversial ones like BetterHelp, and for you bloody sinners out there, you have Adam and Eve. But the latest kid to the club has been the absolutely extremely popular that had just taken the site by storm, Established Title. Now, before we jump straight into Established Title, I'm not going to try and sell you something or say that we gotta talk about today's sponsor. No, we don't do that here on the channel. Although I myself, being a bloody cringy React tuber, have had the opportunity to showcase some sponsorship here on the channel. Some of them, for example, have been games that I myself had to try before showcasing to you that it is something that is worth playing. And even at times, I have had the opportunity to sell you some loot boxes and or microtransactions, which of course I promptly told the advertisers to go fuck themselves, because listen, I already do React videos, okay? I need to have certain standards. But it's important to know that paid advertising has become one of, if not the main way for many people to monetize on YouTube, as it helps a lot of creators get away from the stranglehold that the platform itself tend to have on them. Since sometimes the demonetization of content is just never explained, you kind of have to rely on the sponsorship that you get. It's very much a big stress relief. Now, when things tend to take a site by storm like that, you would of course do your due diligence to kind of check what other creators are doing. Is this something that is worth doing? Is this something that is worth sharing to my viewers? Is the cause right? Is this something that I want to stand behind? You can go so far as to read Trustpilot reviews of the product that you're trying to sell. But if you do just a little bit of like cross-referencing, you'll stumble on some crazy stuff, which is of course what is currently happening right now with established titles. Now, I have been dancing around that for quite some time. What the hell is it? According to the promotional material, established title would allow anyone who invests in their efforts to become a landowner in Scotland. Not only that, but they would even be allowed to obtain the title of Lord and Ladies. Now, listen here. I don't need to have any background in building and engineering, knowing anything about the regulations of construction in Scotland, nor do I need to have any insight in the real estate agencies of Scotland, nor going even so far as to reading anything about the articles of ownerships in Scotland to know that this sounds kind of fishy. I mean, this sounds like one of those goof gifts that your aunt or uncle will buy you, like, "Here, Jack, my favorite nephew, I've named a star after you." Well, fuck you, Uncle Tom.
Whoa, calm down, Jamal.
I actually don't have an Uncle Tom, and that would be a terrible name to have. But, Uncle, I am now an astrophysicist, so I can name any stars that I find. Yeah, kudos to me threatening my family with a degree. But to put it simply, this sounds shady as that is of course if this wasn't one of those goof gifts, but is obviously not, is a real thing, at least that's what they claim. Now, I guess that the thing that would make a lot of people think that this was legit was the implementation of this last part, where the company claims to have a nature pledge, putting in some efforts to plant a tree every single time that you pay for the product. And that in itself will sound pretty good to anybody who is not aware of how it is that carbon offset is one of the greatest bloody scams out there. The term carbon offset or carbon offset credit, as you may have heard it used in relation to your favorite car manufacturer Tesla, are used interchangeably. They broadly refer to a way of dealing with carbon emission. For many companies who don't have the ability to meet some of the carbon emission bracket that is set out to them, they have to be an offset somewhere else. The way that many companies have an increase in carbon storage through, for example, the restoration of land or the planting of trees. The carbon offset credit is in itself like a transferable instrument that is certified by the government, usually, allowing companies like the aforementioned Tesla to, for example, sell a lot of their credits to other companies, so that although they say that they are pretty green,
It's false. No way.
they actually don't mitigate any of the obvious damage that they create to the environment. So good job, Tesla. Now, normal people like you and I can also pay an offset to offset our carbon footprint in, for example, the transportation of the stuff that we pay online, the clothes that we wear, the flight that we take, the purchase of grounds in Scotland that will grant us lordship. Which in itself is a cool thing to do, just like the big companies who two-thirds of are relying on carbon offsets rather than actually diminishing their carbon emission. We can do that very cool deed of saving the planet from the comfort of our home. But we all know that that doesn't really happen. For example, here's a very lazily googled Bloomberg article on how it is that the carbon offset aren't really what they are panned out to be. Now, if you've listened to my rant so far, I want you to take this as a note. Most of the YouTubers promoting this most likely did not know that they too were being scammed by the scammers, who in turn then scammed everybody else, man. The layers to this thing. Like, they did not know. They were duped as well, most likely. And that's in all fairness for, hopefully, a bunch of them who are truly caring for their audience are going to address this and apologize, maybe. But then, what are you getting? Well, it turns out that you are getting zilch. And the way that I personally found that out was through doing that cross-referencing thing that I talked about before. By literally typing land ownership in Scotland to check out if this, of course, was legit, I stumbled on another site that was doing something very similar. This is from a site called Highland Titles. And in trying to check out some of the testimonies for the very happy individuals who also partook in something similar, I found out that first and foremost, the site doesn't really work. It doesn't send you back to the Instagram page, but into looking at it in the Instagram page here on my phone, there was this absolute legend of a gentleman who left a massive comment. Whomever you are, DJ Awesome, you saved me a hell of a lot of time. So here is a quick and sweet explanation of the situation. A lairdship, which is the circumstance of you owning land in Scotland, is in itself a title which is linked to the land. But for it to become a title and part of the name of the individual who owns the land, it is necessary to petition Scotland's Supreme Herald, the Lord Lion Kings of Arms, for the title to be officially recognized. The Lord Lion does not actually recognize anyone as a laird. Rather, it recognizes the right to a territorial designation. For example, if someone buys a Scottish estate, which for many years has been known as Glen Smith, and if this meets the land criteria stipulated by the Lord Lion, on petitioning a grant of arm in that name, which again you cannot be recognized as a laird yourself, you are just changing the name of the owner, he will be recognized as John Smith of Glen Smith. God damn, this is a weird sentence. He is also entitled to call himself the Laird of Glen Smith. It is, however, impossible to have numerous laird of a single estate at the same time, as has been advertised by these companies. And he finishes off by saying that, of course, this will imply that every landowner in Scotland are, of course, lords and ladies. Now, companies like Established Titles or Highland Title here would claim the use of a certain article within the Scotland Act of 1979, section 4(1)b, saying that one is exempt from a registration if only they buy a square foot parcel. It would be like the equivalent of that loophole that was a few years ago in Spain, where like if you wanted to establish a container house, you only had to buy a permit to make like a public swimming pool, which is fucking ridiculous. But this is not the case here, because the very definition, according at least to the Law Society of Scotland, of said square area that you're buying is defined as being a souvenir plot, which under the very act that they are citing in the Scotland Act is something that, although unlikely to be wanted in isolation except for the sake of mere ownership or for sentimental reasons or commercial purposes, the fact that the keeper of such land is obliged to reject the registration does not necessarily mean that the ownership can be obtained by some other means. Also, given the fact that your application for lordship is never going to happen, the whole thing is a sham, as well as that of planting trees, because of course it turns out that the land area of trees that they own where they can plant stuff is already protected, so they can't do a single thing there. They pulled a Hog Mountain project, which is something that I highly recommend that you check out. This is something that the channel Wendover Production has made an amazing video on called, what was it again? The Carbon Offset Problem. Check that out, it's very informative. All in all, to say what? Well, be careful of the thing that you are investing your money on, even when it comes from a trustworthy source, because they themselves may not know what they are being engaged into, because you are most likely not going to know about any of this if you did not do, oh my god, I'm going to use one of those conspiracy theories, the talking point, do your own research. But that's what it is for me, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this massive rant of mine, and it was a bit informative for you guys. Hopefully we can do a bit more of these, and you're willing to listen to me talking for minutes. That said though, I'm about to hit a bike ride, given that I've been also as a gift given these AK-47 shots. Tastes like ass.